Look at this watch. It has a rubber strap. The case looks like plastic. You can see right through the dial. It looks like something you'd find at a toy store. This watch costs $1 million, not $10,000, not $100,000, $1 million. And there's a waiting list to buy it. So the question isn't whether rich people are crazy. The question is, what exactly are they paying for? Because I looked into it, and the answer genuinely surprised me. Let's start from the beginning. Paris, 2001, an international watch fair. A 50-year-old Frenchman named Richard Mille walks in with a watch unlike anything anyone has ever seen. No gold, no diamonds, no classic round case. It looks like a racing car engine strapped to a wrist. The industry laughs. Swiss watchmakers have been doing things the same way for 300 years. Who is this Frenchman to tell them differently? But Richard Mille isn't just a designer. He spent 20 years in the luxury watch industry before starting his own brand. He knows exactly what he's doing. His idea is simple but radical. What if a watch was engineered like a Formula One car? Not inspired by Formula One, actually engineered with the same materials, the same precision, the same obsession with weight. To answer that question, he needs to understand what's actually inside a watch. And that brings us to our first clue. A standard luxury watch has around 200 parts. A Richard Mille has up to 500. But it's not just the number of parts that matters. It's what those parts are made of. This is where it starts to get interesting. A normal Swiss watch uses steel or gold. Richard Mille uses materials that don't exist in normal watchmaking. The case, grade 5 titanium, the same alloy used in aerospace and surgical implants, lighter than steel, stronger than steel. The bridges holding the movement together? Carbon TPT, a material developed for Formula One chassis. 600 layers of carbon fiber, each thinner than a human hair, stacked at alternating angles for maximum rigidity. The bearings? Ceramic. The same material used in jet engine components. It doesn't expand when it heats up. It doesn't corrode. Ever. Now here's the thing. These materials aren't just expensive to buy. They're almost impossible to machine. Which brings us to clue number 3. The Richard Mille factory in Le Brassus, Switzerland. Walk inside and it looks more like a NASA clean room than a watch workshop. The machines here operate at tolerances of 1 micron. That's 1,000th of a millimeter. For context, a human hair is 70 microns thick. These parts are machined to a precision 70 times finer than a human hair. Each movement takes between 6 months and 3 years to complete. Not because they're slow, because the parts require that long to machine, test, assemble, test again, disassemble, adjust, and reassemble. One watchmaker works on one watch from start to finish. They don't pass it down an assembly line. One person, one watch, months of work. And then comes the testing. Every Richard Mille is tested for shock resistance equivalent to a 5,000 G impact. That's the force of a bullet. Why does a watch need to survive a bullet impact? That question leads us to clue number 4. Rafael Nadal, 22 Grand Slam titles. Widely considered the greatest tennis player of all time. In 2010, Richard Mille approached Nadal with an unusual request. Not to wear the watch at press conferences, not to pose for photos, to wear it while actually playing tennis, during matches, during serves, during volleys. The watch needed to survive the most physically violent sport in professional athletics. A tennis serve generates forces of up to 3,500 G on the wrist. They engineered a movement specifically for Nadal, The RM027, total weight 18.83 grams, lighter than a standard wristwatch strap. Nadal wore it in match after match, Grand Slam after Grand Slam. The watch survived everything, and the world watched. Then came Formula One. Felipe Massa, Ferrari driver. Richard Mille engineers a watch he wears in the cockpit. During races, at 200 miles per hour, surviving 5G of cornering force on every single turn. No other watch brand has ever done this. Not Rolex, not Patek Philippe, not Omega. Richard Mille doesn't sponsor athletes to wear watches at dinner parties. They engineer watches that survive what the athletes survive. That's a completely different thing, and it's exactly why the price is what it is. But there's still one more clue. At some point in the last 15 years, Richard Mille became the watch of a very specific group of people. Not old money aristocrats, not retired bankers, athletes, rappers, musicians, billionaires under 50, the new global elite, Jay-Z, Drake, Pharrell Williams, Cristiano Ronaldo, Odell Beckham Jr. wearing one on the field during NFL games. Why? Because Richard Mille looks different. In a world where every billionaire already has a Rolex, Richard Mille signals something else entirely. It says, I'm not playing by the old rules. And the colors, the skeleton dials, the asymmetric cases, they photograph beautifully. In the Instagram era, that matters more than heritage. Richard Mille produces around 5,000 watches per year, total for the entire world. Rolex makes 800,000. Patek Philippe makes 62,000. 5,000 watches for every billionaire on the planet who wants one. The math is simple. You can have all the money in the world and still not get one. So let's go back to the original question. Why does this watch cost $1 million? It's not one reason. It's five. 1. Materials that don't exist anywhere else in watchmaking. Aerospace titanium, Formula One carbon fiber, ceramic bearings. 2. Manufacturing precision that takes years per watch. 1 micron tolerances, 1 watchmaker per piece. 3. Engineering that's actually tested in real conditions. On Nadal's wrist, in Massa's cockpit, at 200 miles per hour. 4. Production so limited that demand will always exceed supply. 5,000 watches a year for the entire world. 5. Cultural status that no amount of money can manufacture overnight. When Pharrell and Ronaldo wear the same watch, it becomes the watch. Separately, each of these reasons justifies a premium. Together, they justify the price of a small apartment. Here's the honest answer. If you want precision, a $500 Casio keeps better time than both. If you want investment, Rolex has a more proven resale market. If you want heritage, Patek Philippe has 180 years of history. Richard Mille isn't for any of those reasons. Richard Mille is for the person who has everything and wants something that almost no one else can have. That's not crazy. That's just a different definition of value. The watch industry spent 300 years defining what luxury means. Richard Mille spent 20 years proving they were wrong. Subscribe if you want to understand why things cost what they cost. Next week, Patek Philippe. The watch brand that says, you never actually own a Patek Philippe. You merely look after it for the next generation. We'll find out if that's genius or just marketing.